All right, I am live. So let me check. All right, just texted someone. Let me check my stream audio to make sure it's not spazzing out the mic. So let me check. There we go. So, I'm pretty sure you all know why the stream is titled this way. Circus, Hail Mary. Haha. Yeah, it's going to be a review of both Project Hail Mary and The Amazing Digital Circus Episode 8. So I guess we'll start off with Project Hail Mary, because that's the thing most people are talking about, like it or not, animation freaks. But anyway. So this is an original movie based on a book from 2021, I think. Hold on, let me look it up. Project Hail Mary book. Yes, 2021. So this is new. This is new. And it's already setting box office records, and well deserved. So what do I think about this movie? So, of course, the plot is there's a sort of... I forgot the name of it, but I'm just going to call it Space AIDS. So, Space AIDS is taking over... Space AIDS is taking over the sun and is eating up the heat. And if Space AIDS is successful in the next 30 years, the Earth could cool up and we will all die. And what I like about this movie is it's a film about hope, and over time, I'll explain to you what it is. So of course, the movie was made by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who you all know for the Spider-Verse movies and Lego movie, Cloudy with the Shades of Meatballs. They were supposed to do Solo as well, but then they got fired. And their writing style is still in this movie. And it's what I like about their humor. It's not toilet humor. It's not swearing. It's not haha funny sex or whatever. You know, it's just situational humor. I think the joke that got the most laughs out of me was when the ship was going 3 ways apart, and then the other ship was going 3 ways apart. Yeah. My god, I have a better time talking about these movies the moment I stop talking about them. It's like I have stage fright a little, even though I don't. Anyway, so what I like about this movie is it actually does take a long time to get to where Ryan Gosling, whose character's name is Grace, that's his last name by the way, where Grace needs to go. So it actually does say that Grace has been in a coma for 3 years, and it takes 11 light years to get to the star that Space AIDS has not affected, which ends up being a planet at the end of the day. Yeah, they don't really explain that. Apparently they leave out a lot that's in the book. I haven't read the book, but... And throughout the movie, there's flashbacks. Flashbacks as to how, you know, we are to where we are. So, of course, the movie opens up with Ryan Gosling waking up in the space station. But then we get a flashback to him as a teacher and him teaching kids about the space AIDS, and all the kids are freaking out in the class. That actually does happen in the movie. And, okay, look, I'm not saying it's realistic for a bunch of kids to just, you know, freak out and shout like that. But I'm just saying, inside, you know, the idea of space cataclysms and end of the world can actually be frightening to a kid. And I know because I was one of those kids at one point in my life. And so, of course, the government, in fact, it's all the world's governments working together, all right? Because this is the end of the world. They need to work together. They're not just going to give up. So all the governments of the world get Ryan Gosling because of his theories on books he wrote about how to stop the space aids. And of course, overtime it's easy, overtime it's not. I just want to say there's also, I don't remember the black guy's name. Cole? Cole, is that his name? It's on the tip of my tongue. He only plays a major role in the movie for about 10 minutes, and it kind of works. It works a little. You know, because they definitely do pay off to his short amount of screen time, which we'll get into in a bit. And also, he helps study the whole thing. And there's also this joke, because they end up creating a fourth space aids. And then Ryan Gosling's like, we just made a baby. That part made me laugh. So there's also a scene in the movie where Grace, played by Ryan Gosling, of course, is holding a funeral because along the way, a Chinese dude and I think a Russian girl died on this journey, like during the 3-year time span. And the most we know about them, and I was really, really hoping, because I'm all for movies doing something different, that they don't explore them as characters a lot more in the flashbacks. They don't. They're still in the flashbacks, but we'll get to that in a bit. Like, the most we learn about them and their personal lives is when Grace is going over the cards, the pictures of their personal lives. Like, the Chinese guy is a family man, the Russian girl, you know, is your average girl who's loves her friends, loves her daddy. And it was a good scene because it's a guy who doesn't know too much, holding a sort of funeral to people who died right in front of him. And so over the course of the flashbacks, again, we don't know much about them. Like, the most we know about their character is the funeral scenes before their flashbacks. And Grace wasn't even supposed to go. It was supposed to be a black guy, but the black guy ended up dying in like a nuclear strike. So at the very, very end of the movie, all right, during the third act, they reveal in a flashback that Grace was drafted in the first place to go. And Grace is all pessimistic. And what I really love about this is that they don't do some bullshit cliched, Grace has this hero moment, he has this waking up moment saying, I'll go, and I will save the world. No, he's pessimistic throughout the whole thing, and he's forced to go. He is tranquilized to the neck, beat down on the ground, and Cole, the same guy who plays a role for like 10 minutes in the film that he experimented with, he said, good luck, sir. Something along those lines. So this movie is already subverting a couple of writing cliches. So now, the one you're all ready for, folks. The one Pomni is replacing on the thumbnail. Rocky. Now, I don't know, but this is how I remember seeing the first trailer in theaters. They didn't really show the entire body of Rocky. They just showed the hand. Like, I thought he was gonna be like some rock clone of Ryan Gosling in a way. That was just my thought. I had nothing to back it up. Just something I thought of. But instead, he ended up being a crab. And apparently, Rocky is a physical puppet. Which, you know, given how abundant we are with CGI and all that shit, like, I barely even noticed. And remember the whole this movie takes time sort of thing? There actually is a good portion of the movie where Grace is learning his language. Alright? And of course learning that he has echolocation. So, he grabs a clock, he writes down all the numbers, and Rocky... And I have a soft spot for either characters who don't talk or characters who don't have a face. Because you can tell what they're thinking or saying inside their minds, inside their souls or whatever, just by their body movements. And Rocky gets excitedly, like, getting the clock and stuff like that. Getting his own clock. And I gotta be honest, I like that clock better than our own clocks. Clocks. Anyway. So yeah, over time they bond a friendship, and they discover, of course he's called Rocky because he's an alien made out of rocks. And he's in a similar situation to Grace. Space AIDS is infecting his star too. The sun is a star, not a planet. Fucking idiots. But all of his crew ended up dying, except for Rocky. So Grace and Rocky are in a similar kerfuffle. And you want to know what's interesting? Realistically, if there is life on other planets, I mean, never say never, they would not be humanoid like us. Like, they would probably be an original looking species like Rocky. And I kind of feel bad for Rocky, because all he could see through echolocation, which they do give us a first-person view, and, his mouth is on what could be his ass, and the way he talks and communicates is on the top of his head. And another thing I like that they bring up is it has been scientifically proven that humans cannot breathe on other planets unless they, unless it's on the same quality as Earth. Like, there's a movie that came out almost a decade ago. I forgot what the movie's called, but I remember seeing trailers for it. I didn't see the movie, but it was a romance where a human was born on Mars to Earthling parents, but he couldn't breathe on Earth because, it doesn't have the same velocity as Mars. If I'm using my wording correctly. Like, that's what I remember. If you guys remember the name of that movie, leave it in the comments below. And so what I'm trying to say is, they're trying to. So Rocky demands, Ryan Gosling's words, not mine, that there's all these tunnels, all right? And it is a fucking tunnel full of glass, so it can support the way he breathes because of his planet. Because of his own personal planet. And, they had every right to make him annoying, but they did not. Like, there are scenes where you could tell he's irritated. There's a reason why he's, quote, demanding, and we don't see scenes where he's demanding. Not that I would have had a problem, it's just that, it's just the way you could have written it could have been so much worse. And he's excited to hear about humans and stuff like that, and he feels emotion because he has a lover, and he has, like, a sort of tattoo that's like a green gem on his arm that's like his lover, and they name a planet after his lover. And there's an entire scene where they're trying to pick a voice until he finds something that he likes. And there's a scene where it's a dome that simulates everything on Earth, including movies. And one of those movies was Rocky. And there's also a scene where he hilariously says, my name is Rocky. Not like Rocky in the movie. I'm my own Rocky. And this is a minor nitpick of the film, but what I like is we hear him talk in his language, but then we hear the computer voice translating him. But does he automatically understand Grace? Like Grace's English? Because we don't hear him talking, like me talking right now, and it's like that. And what I also like is they have, instead of like thumbs up, it's thumbs down. That means thumbs up in Rocky's species. And so before we get to the other planet, I want to mention another background scene. Not background, flashback, I'm an idiot. It's a flashback of Ryan Gosling's boss, and everyone's singing karaoke. She doesn't want to because she's the boss and she knows there's, the end of the world is on its way in 30 years. But then she goes down anyway and sings a song. I don't remember what the song is called, but the lyrics are on the tip of my tongue. She sings a song that's all about hope. And that's what I mean this movie is about hope. All right? it shows that you might be the big tough boss, all right, in charge of something very serious, but you need to lay it off for a while. And I really, really hate to compare it to this, but there's a Saturday Night Live skit when they used to do animations where they were parodying Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Seriously, the guy who did the impression of the snowman, the voice actor's on the tip of my tongue. Like, seriously, his impression of the snowman is really fucking on par, really good. The message was, we're in a serious time right now. It looks like we shouldn't even be entertained. We shouldn't be laughing. You know, we shouldn't be singing and all that stuff. But that's equally as important because of how sad and miserable things are right now. And, you know, there's so many things going on. And so now back to the planet. It's an entire intense action scene where I kind of wish they had Rocky do a little bit of help too. Another nitpick that I have, where they're trying to hold the molecules on the planet in a giant spear so they can fight the space aids. And so Ryan Gosling gets into an incident, and Rocky is willing to get out of his ball where he cannot breathe, his hamster ball, and his mouth on the top of his head is steaming just so he could save Grace's life. Seriously, I really want to do an analyzation of this film. And there's also a long period of time when Grace wakes up, he's hoping Rocky wakes up, and Rocky eventually does. And they finally find the cure. So then they have their goodbye moment. Their goodbye that kind of reminded me of E.T. a little, except not as emotional as E.T. because E.T.'s an actual goodbye. As we thought that was the last they'll see him, space aids that wasn't fought, it was collected in jars, mutated to escape the jars. And I was really hoping, because I thought they were like, I was literally saying in the theater, please don't let this be the case, please don't let this be the case, please don't let this be the case. Like, I was really hoping they wouldn't make it in a way where here it'll be all doom and gloom, the space aids can't be fought, the end is nigh, all that bullshit. But then they don't. Like, it's just it's like no different than how COVID mutated a few years ago. And so Grace has to make the difficult choice. Either go home or save his friend, to warn his friend, his new friend, that he thought he was never going to see again. But he decides to do both. So he sends 4 containers named after the Beatles. God, why does it always have to be the Beatles being referenced? Why couldn't you do, like, Queen or something? Again, another nitpick. Like this one canister's name's Freddie, and this one's John, and this one's Brian, and this one's Roger. That's how much of a Queen fan I am. I know all their names. And so he goes back, and luckily Rocky's still alive. And Rocky, I think it was before the scene I was talking about, shows him around the ship. And it looks like a bunch of, like, instruments. Like, it's a spaceship full of living instruments. Oh, and also the satellites. Rocky has his own satellites, too, on his ship. Alright, I like that detail, too. So the movie ends with Ryan Gosling on a planet created by Rocky and his own species. And, of course, the planet's customizable. But he's still given the option if he can go back home or not. He's literally still given the option. But before we see Earth, and this is what progresses that this movie is about hope. Alright. The world is frozen. The boss, who's all aged up, like, she has more wrinkles than she has in all the flashbacks, so she's older now. Like, 11 years have passed, and the ocean is frozen, and they're still working on shit to improve it. And this leads to hope. It's not things happen right away like in most movies. It's things take a little bit of time, like realistically would. And it also happens so much today. Like during COVID, we were like, life would get better, but life would get better. You know, this disease would not be as rampant. The governments would not be as evil as they were. And but still, a couple months go by and you're like, well, when? Woke stuff, like woke media and woke people, like, you feel like after 10 years, you're like, okay, well, when? I know, it's kind of a lame comparison. You know, the Middle East. Like, it may or may not get better. That's the only one I'm saying may or may not. But time goes by and you're like, well, when? I say that because that's been going on for centuries. And now with Venezuela and Cuba and Iran, like, they had to deal with this shit for decades. And now, Venezuela is 100% free now. At least I think they are. Iran's in the middle of it, and Cuba's in early stages of it. And it's gonna happen, but it takes a little bit of time because of how much it took for the evil, which I'm gonna call the space aids, because the space aids are not intelligent, to be taken down. It's gonna take time, and that's what I really like about this movie. It shows that, yeah, it feels like Ryan Gosling took forever, but it's never too late to fix it. It's never too late to fight off the space aids and make the sun warm again. My god. So, if you have not seen Project Hail Mary, go see it. It's an original film. It's a film about hope. And speaking of hope, I really hope the future of originality is, you know, gonna be strong because of this movie's box office. Okay? Now, I'm thinking of doing an analyzation of Project Hail Mary because I definitely picked up on the themes of the movie while seeing it in the theater. So, now on to The Amazing Digital Circus, Episode 8. And my, oh my, this show just keeps getting better and better. And you know what this show feels like? First off, I need to call the subgenre that I call it, and it's called the cutesy genre. The cutesy character genre. Like, pretty much every fucking indie show has that. Like, the Helliverse, Lackadaisy, Murder Drones. This one is too, and I wouldn't say it's a deconstruction, of course, but it's clear, but this show does feel like it's not an original world full of cutesy characters. It feels like humans are in what's supposed to be this happy paradise, but they've made it very clear they want to get out. They need to get out. And that's what the past 2 episodes have really been doing a good job at showing. And I constantly bitch about how Hollywood hates stuff that I like. Video games, superheroes. Like, video games, that's how we got the Mario Brothers movie with Bob Hoskins. And superheroes, that's why X-Men have black leather. That's why Galactus was a giant space anus. This feels like someone who kind of believes that stuff, but at the same time, he, or should I say she, in this case, knows what she's doing. She actually stuck to her word, stuck to our advice, made something original, and now everyone is happy. Like, this is a show that definitely takes itself seriously. And the subject of wanting to leave, feeling like you're trapped. And apparently it took inspiration with Earth Without a Mouth, I think it's what it's called. I don't remember. Oh, it's on the top of my tongue. Something Without a Mouth. So now, going on to the contents of what's in the episode. So Kane, and Kane goes full evil in this. Like, he gets mad, he talks about how he's, quote, done everything for all the humans, and they're ungrateful, quote unquote. And now, like, he's making them go on more adventures, he's making them go through hell a lot more, and they figure out a way to make King sane, so he can hack, because he worked at CNA, which is the company. And I have a theory. That Abel was a former human. He was either brainwashed by Kane, so they won't get out, or he was extracted and Kane was able to get his conscience for his own bidding. That's just my theory, though. Because Kane would not admit what his parent company is called. Oh yeah, in the opening of the episode, it shows pictures of, like, food and circuses, and that's how he created, the digital circus in the first place. And then there's, like, a fill-in song, which is like a classical kind of song number. Look, if you're into cutesy characters wearing cutesy clothes, that's you, but I wasn't into them wearing I don't know what it's called. I'll just say Brazilian girl outfit, even the dudes. Not my thing. But yeah, that was a fun song number. And while Kinger is trying to hack into Kane, they do a scene that kind of reminds me of It Chapter 2 a little. R.I.P. James Rant song. Fuck the Oscars, because they forgot him in the memorial. The Actors Awards had everyone in their memorial. Anyway, back on topic. They do a scene where they not necessarily bully him, but they finally tell him his flaws. And Kane, quote, goes, "Why do you people torment me?" And so he brings them all to their own personal insecurities. Yeah, I haven't heard much of Gummy Goo until this episode. But there was an awesome scene where Gummy Goo is, like, evil and monstrous. That was my favorite out of all the delusions. Ragatha is in a part that clearly represents her mother. I've seen some people say, oh, her mom killed her siblings. Nah, I think that's just symbolism. Not symbolism. I think that's just added in because Ragatha's a doll now. And Gangle is in a carousel full of her emotions that she can't control because, to quote Jackson episode 1, she's a crybaby. Zubul is in a scene that kind of reminds me of Toy Story 2 a little. Seriously, there's two things that I'm still shocked never traumatized me or scared me as a kid. One was the scene where the dream sequence from Toy Story 2. How did that not scare me as a kid? And Batman Returns. How the fuck did that not scare me as a kid? Penguin literally bites into a fucker's nose and blood starts squirting out. How? I watched that movie a ton as a kid. Anyway. And of course there's a bunch of mirrors. So showing that, yes, Zubul's own body represents that she's never comfortable in herself. And look, I'm going to say something that's going to be a little bit controversial here, but hold on, I want to check the audio just in case. Okay. Look, I'm not a fan of this whole identity politics, multiple genders thing, but what I like about this is they actually treat it like she struggles. She struggles with herself, and that's why she identifies this way. And, like, she's never happy within herself, which is why the way she looks, which is why she identifies as I'm gonna be kinder with my words because I'm not on Rumble. Because most shows that have these kind of characters, like, they virtue signal to hell and back saying, yeah, you're awesome for identifying this way, and all the fucking NPCs on Twitter go, you're a bigot for not believing the way we do, for not believing this is real. All that bullcrap. And yeah, that's what I enjoy about Zubul's character. I'm not all, yeah, I accept this, no. I'm just saying, okay, you're doing good with the story. Good job, Gooseworks. And Jax's illusion are shadows of Ribbit, Kaufmo, and Pomni all laughing. And that was my... Okay. Hey, well... Oh... Okay, my favorites from all those delusions, or illusions, sorry, kind of gets mixed. Look-wise, Pomni's illusion was my favorite. Symbolism-wise, Zubul's was my favorite. And And now, psychological wise, Jax is my favorite. Like, I don't know if they're trying to imply Ribbon and Kaufmo never liked Jax, or he's worried that his friends secretly don't like him, or they're gonna turn on him or something. But there is a scene where they do take off his rabbit skin, and then there's like him as a wooden toy. So now, so then Kinger deletes Kane finally, and the circus is falling apart. It's all black, it's all glitchy, and Zubul is allowed to cuss again. Holy shit. So yeah, I personally think it's time for Gooseworks to go into some live action stuff. If you want to, girl, if you were able to get past my commentary about Zubul without raging in anger, because I know who you are, I know who your voice actors are, go ahead, go to some live action stuff. You know, like, not necessarily directing, but more writing. I can direct. So yeah, you know, leave it in the comments if you want me to do a full analyzation of the Amazing Digital Circus, because again, I was able to talk about its themes and its characters and its uniqueness that separates it from the other cutesy character genre, like, on this stream. You know, it would have been hilarious if Zool ends up being a man, like a manly dude in the human world. And then you guys imagine the scene at the end where she puts over her fake mouth because she's able to swear now. That's the end of the stream. Bye, guys.